started dropping by the shelter occasionally, and it was really appalling to me, since we did not have a humane society in Gordon anymore, that there were over 5,000 dogs and cats coming into the shelter yearly. Now, over 5,000 at this point. And over 70% of them were being killed, and nobody ever knew they were there.
I started volunteering at the Gordon County Animal Shelter about a year and a half ago. I had messaged a friend of mine on Facebook that had put out a status update calling for a transport driver for 2 medium-sized dogs on their way to Chattanooga, Tennessee, about 45 minutes north of home. I told her I was headed that way Saturday and would be happy to help if needed, so she gave me the phone number for the lady to contact. I had no idea what I was doing or who it was for, really, but the picture of the dogs behind the cage bars almost immediately broke my heart. At 6:30 Saturday morning, I showed up at a stranger's house and helped her lift 2 shaking, smelly dogs into the back of my car and drove them to Tennessee. Both looked exhausted and terrified, but neither were aggressive, and aside from being on the skinny side, they seemed healthy enough. One whimpered the entire way, the other slept. For the next week or so, I couldn't get their eyes or the way they looked at me out of my head. I contacted the woman I had picked them up from. Like we were taking part in some underground plot, I asked questions like, "Who are you? Who do you work for? What do you want?" She gave me the number of another girl, younger, and we agreed to meet at the county animal shelter the following afternoon so she could show me the ropes. These women were members of a group called Friends of Gordon County Animal Shelter, I learned, and they were just one of thousands of groups across the state made up of about 4 or 5 dedicated volunteers willing to give their time, outside of full-time jobs and families, to take pictures of animals in the shelter, post them online, coordinate with rescues both in and out of state, drive transports to and from cities and in between states, open their homes as fosters, to animals who needed just a day or 2 more than a shelter could give them. Whatever it took to save as many lives as possible. You name it, they did it. When you fall into this affinity space, you don't realize that it's going to take over your life. You start going by the shelter once or twice a week to take pictures of the cats and dogs on death row for that week. This seems like it should be a relatively quick process. Instead, it can take hours. Some of the dogs have so much energy from being cooped up in a tiny pen without sunlight, fresh air, or room to run around that you can't just snap a picture of them and be done. Every picture is blurry, and every time you kneel down to take it, they're in your face wanting to give kisses or play. Other dogs are like a dream. They're the ones that come in with their collar on, rabies tag jingling out the promise someone had made to take care of them. They'll know how to sit, stay, lay down, roll over, shake, and they'll do it over and over again trying to impress you because all they want to do is go home and lay down beside you and never, ever leave. Some dogs are so terrified they won't move. Their eyes will watch you enter their kennel, and they will either back into a corner to sit or pace the wall furthest from you trying to control their anxiety. Dogs like this will take days to warm up to you. Depending on how full the shelter is and how many must go to make way for next week's load, they may not ever be given that time. Once you have these pictures, you post them online, either on a Facebook page or on Pet Finder or YouTube or Instagram. You put their information into the computer in the hopes that it will attract someone somewhere that will save the animal before time is up. If you've done this for a while, people who run rescues will begin to contact you by email, by phone, through social media, and you'll begin to coordinate and facilitate the rescue of animals, finding foster homes to give the animal a place to stay while waiting for a transport to wherever the rescue is located, which in our case is often several states north. Finding transporters to get the animal from one place to another. These transports often cross multiple state lines and require anywhere from 10 to 20 drivers who will meet at gas stations, PetSmarts, Walmarts, rest stops, parks, you name it. When you can't find anyone, you'll drive them yourself. To Washington, Georgia, to Birmingham, Alabama, to Johnson City, Tennessee. People will ask you constantly, do you get paid for that? And you don't really know how to answer because you know they're talking about money, but you wouldn't be. The process of learning is largely trial and error, but no one can prepare you for the error. The stakes are high in this affinity space. There is no starting over from your last checkpoint. This is truly life or death.
There were people who lived in a village on the river, and there was a picnic one day, and all the people from the village were at the picnic, and someone looked up and saw a baby in the river, and they yelled about it, and everyone rushed down to the river to rescue that baby. And so they got the baby out, and they were looking at it, and somebody said, "Oh my God, there's another one." And there was another one, and another one, and another one. And they were trying to call in all the help they could to get all the babies out of the river. There were just more babies than they could get out. And finally, a group of 3 men started running. Actually, it was women also. Actually, it was 3 women. Started running upstream. And they said, "Where are you going? We need you to help save these babies." And they said, "We're going to go and stop whoever's throwing them in."
It's funny because one of the main slogans of spay and neuter advocates is education is key. Education in this case is a process of word-of-mouth information spread from one person to the next in order to arrive at a solution. Members of volunteer groups learn from one another, and their experience dictates their mastery. Their understanding grows each time they either succeed or fail, and it is mostly failure that prompts the lines of questioning that lead one toward a higher level of understanding. In this affinity space, you're sparked by curiosity, urged onward because of passion, and educated through experience. Sometimes experiences lead you to answers. More often they lead to more questions. But the end goal is never cloudy or deemed impossible.